Welcome to Face the Nation with me, Manu Amagoma. Our guest today is Polycarp Igathe, who is contesting to be Nairobi's governor on a Jubilee ticket under the Azimio One coalition. Mr. Igathe is a former deputy governor of Nairobi and has come from the private sector and has worked in various companies in Kenya. The candidate and his running mate, Professor Kaloki, are campaigning on the platform of Nai Tunavyoitaka, which, according to the manifesto, is kustawisha jamii, kuboresha uchumi, kuimarisha mazingira. And welcome to the show, Mr. Igathe. And now let's face the nation.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Glad to be here.
Tell us, kustawisha jamii. When somebody looks at your manifesto, you are speaking about starting a school feeding program in the informal sectors. Do you have a rough idea how much this will cost?
Nairobi has approximately 205 public primary schools, another 200 secondary schools, and to feed the people every day and the children who go to school should be roughly about 200, 250 million per month. For a county that under my guidance will be producing 100 million shillings revenue a day. Today it's 30 to 40 million shillings a day.
But let me see if I got you correctly. Are you saying that we can be able to afford to feed school-going children at a cost of about 200 million shillings a month? But you got that, if then I do that calculation, we are looking at billions of shillings every year. In fact, that is roughly almost 25 billion shillings a year.
200.
So it's not 25, but
2.4
billion shillings.
Yes,
2.5 billion shillings a year.
You got it right.
Yes.
2.4 billion a year. We get 19 billion from the Revenue Commission for Revenue Allocation, from the Global Fund. And we want to triple revenue collection in Nairobi because it's been very heavy, deep revenue leakage. Revenue leakage happens both in private sector and in public sector. But in government, and especially Nairobi City County, we've been leaking maybe 70% of the revenue and only receiving 30% of the revenue. That's the level of the ratios.
And if you look at, for example, the KRA reports that were done in the last financial year, they say that there was a deficit of about 7.6 billion or thereabout. That the estimates were about 38 billion. What was collected was about in the region of 29 billion or something of the sort. If the county government is already living on a deficit of about 7.6 billion shillings, an additional cost of 2.5 billion in itself, then that's a very heavy load on the county.
Nairobi's under collection of revenue is a function of not delivering services. A county's revenue collection is equivalent to its delivery of essential services. So why should I pay rates if I'm not getting water? I'm not getting electricity. I don't have security. Garbage is not collected. So you can see, for instance, the whole of Eastlands, if I count all the embakassis, Nairobi generally should have ratepayers people paying rates in Nairobi should be in excess of 2 million, but only 120,000 properties pay rates. If I bring in the Sectional Properties Act, where you go to Kileleshwa and look at an apartment, maybe one apartment block would have, let's say, 20 apartments. Each apartment should be paying rates. Today, it's that building that is paying rates. So what's my point? My point is we are under collecting because we are under serving. So the financing of the school feeding program will be born out of proper collections and proper service provisions. So the revenue we earn is not revenue we shall take to misuse or abuse. It will be revenue which, first of all, will be directed to hungry households, hungry children, especially in informal sectors, and to encourage those children to go to school and not to get involved in child labor.
What then becomes most important? And I'm thinking, as a parent living in Nairobi, is it the food, or should I have schools closer to where I stay, or should I have more teachers in the classroom, particularly so in the school area where the county government is directly involved, which is early childhood education?
Nairobi is a disaster when it comes to lack of proper access to education, access to healthcare, and access to basic food security. We have 5 million people who are only being served by 200 schools, roughly, public schools. So the Nairobi resident has been consigned to taking their children to private schools, which is not a problem, which then means even when nationally we say free primary education, free secondary education, in Nairobi nobody accesses that because the schools are not enough to serve the people. So we have to build schools. For sure, we have to do that with the national government, especially the secondary schools, the primary schools, and we who have the responsibility for ECD, early childhood development centers, we have to do that. Secondly, malnutrition is a reality, Manwa, in Nairobi. Nairobi has a lot of stunted people. Please look around the streets of Nairobi and tell me, when is the last time you saw a 6-foot person coming from the informal settlement? Yani mtu mrefu beyond 6. Nairobi, there was a time Nairobians, Kenyans, and Nairobians were equivalent to guys in West Africa because the nutrition they're having, carbohydrates, protein, you know, vitamins. That's what I'm talking about. I'm bringing to your notice and to the notice of our viewers tonight that the level of depravity and lack of proper food every day is such a reality Nairobi will not believe it. Nairobi's need is basic, is that basic.
If you became the governor, and in line with a lot of the other developed cities across the world, would you be willing to go to the national government and work with the national government at that time and say you will pass a law, whether it's a county bylaw or a national, or pass through parliament, that people who live in certain areas, so assuming we broke Nairobi into the various sub-counties, that you cannot take your child beyond a certain radius from where you stay?
In global cities, you're limited to taking your children around your neighborhood. But in Nairobi, if you do that, you'll completely, it's too early for that. We have to build the schools. Let me tell you, this city used to have a secondary school, a primary school, a nursery school, a social hall, a fire station, a dispensary in every ward. That was the standard. But most of these facilities were grabbed over a period of number of years, close to 40 years, and they were lost. We have to restart again. We have to retool and rejig and regenerate Nairobi by starting afresh and achieving the right ratio of school to population density, market to population density, dispensary or health facility to population density. The population density equation is the biggest challenge to the work we must do in Nairobi. But the solution is we must bring and understand the population density. By the way, the average population density per square kilometer in Nairobi, if you take 696 kilometers squared, you divide by 5.2 million, you will see that there's a density challenge within Nairobi that has not been matched with investments in the last years.
For example,
but that is the problem. The solution is to build. Me and you can massage problems until chickens come home to roost. But I'm being elected. I'm being elected to drive solutions.
Let us look at
not to become a general. Not a general to talk about problems.
How many more schools do you
1,000 secondary schools.
Hospitals or dispensaries?
We need another 350. Markets, 150.
Can all these things be achieved in the 5 years that you'll be a governor?
Why not?
But where will that money come from? I know you've spoken about leakages and so on.
From revenue collection. And please have faith. I'm telling you, this is a 500 million revenue a day county. All I'm promising is we shall be collecting 100 million revenue a day. Today we are collecting 20 to 30 million, and they don't even know, even that 20 to 30 million doesn't really go to service provision. Nairobi is like a grown-up child who's still suckling the mother's teats, which is evil. Because Nairobi should be the county that should even be financing the national government. And because of that, the revenue question and the funding model for Nairobi is going to be at the heart of what we do in the first 100 days. And it's not just an issue of funding, it's also an issue of planning and budgeting.
In planning and budgeting. Now let's talk about sanitation, garbage collection, and clean water, which you say imarisha mazingira.
Yes.
Why do you think Nairobi is dirty or filthy, as you might have said earlier, and garbage is not collected today? Is it a question that there's too much garbage that we can't be able to collect it? We are not disciplined with how we dispose of our garbage? Or is it just a question of inefficiency?
Nairobi is dirty because it's dirty. Nobody's doing their job, and there are people invoicing for work not done. number one. We are producing almost 3,000 tons of garbage on a daily basis. And garbage is also, the production of garbage is equivalent to the population of where people live. Today, the formula for paying garbage collectors in Nairobi is weight plus distance. So you are paid, Mano, as a garbage collector to collect it farthest from the dump site and wait until it's heaviest for you to take it there. So what we will do is make sure that we pay a premium. Like if in CBD, you are collecting in CBD, or you're collecting in Kibra, or you're collecting in Mathare or Mukuru, or deep sea slum, which is not too far from where I'm speaking to you in Westlands, or deep sea settlement area, we pay you a premium so that you collect at a higher frequency, and you basically collect based on where people live. This question of bringing people to the heart of policy design, policy implementation is going to be at the heart of what we do with Professor Kaloki.
What is the problem today? Is that people are just not collecting because they're not doing their jobs? Or is it we don't have the capacity, or we don't have the money to be able to collect the garbages across? Because in some areas, you'll find that some areas are clean, but some areas are dirty.
I'll tell you, the clean areas in Nairobi is where resident associations, is the upper class side, where the residents themselves have organized themselves to do it for themselves. We privatized garbage collection in the hope that that will be done very well. So it's a function of everything you have said, and you've really actually hit the nail on the head. Number one, the people collecting garbage today are taking Nairobi to the, for lack of a better word, to the cleaners. Yeah, and no pun intended. They're actually taking Nairobi to the cleaners. They are billing us without collecting. Number two, the formula of how we pay them is wrong. We need to fix that and upgrade it, update it. Then thirdly, there are no receptacles. This is the one city in public areas you don't see dustbins, you don't see receptacles. I grew up in a city where we used to talk about Camero in estates. You know, Camero was a car that would come often. Yes. You'll hear kids singing Camero Nakahuti. It would come every day, collecting your garbage and doing that. What we are talking about is not rocket science, my brother. It is something that has been done, and we need to start doing it. And by the way, it doesn't mean we don't have the equipment. And our model of also getting the equipment needs to change. Government has shown that when you lease equipment, you can get current equipment, lower maintenance cost, and be able to go. So we are looking at a leasing program that will be able to bring equipment to enable garbage collectors to do their job.
Do we know how much roughly today we spend, or in a month currently we spend in garbage collection? Might you be knowing what that figure is?
The question is not how much we spend. The question is, are we collecting the garbage? Let me tell you, the audience out there is not really interested in the invoicing. They are interested in when garbage fills on my end, are you collecting or not? That is what we must do at the right frequency and with the right efficiency and with the right effectiveness.
How about water? You speak here quite a lot about water. You want to increase water supply to 1 million cubic liters per day, eliminate water rationing, and build new and cover all storm drains. How will you do this? Because you see, at the moment, Nairobi receives about, is it 500,000 or something of the sort, cubic meters?
No, cubic meters actually means 500 million liters a day. That is what we consume. And I'm rounding off the numbers. But
our demand is more.
We are consuming 1 million liters a day around Nairobi and the metropolitan area.
Yes.
But the production, the supply is 500. Yeah, 500,000. 500. You know, cubic meters a day. Those are the numbers. Okay, 500 to 1 million. Okay. In terms of the supply and demand equation is not much. We are supplying only 50% of the demand of the people.
How will you meet that deficit?
We have to build new water sources. Maragua Dam, Roiro Dam, we have to make sure the wayleaf problem between Kiambu and Nairobi resolved. That can immediately start to ease the problem. And then we have to go to Maragua Dam. Maragua Dam is a new dam. For your information, Nairobi City County owns land in the Aberdare ecosystem. Sasumua Dam, Dakaine Dam, we have land in Nyandarua Mountains that belongs to Nairobi City County. We have title deeds of land in those places. to then create new water sources.
But you
And
know,
this was the vision of the forefathers. And the Nairobi Integrated Urban Master Plan is very clear that every 10 years, the city must be creating a new water source. But we are behind the curve.
I hear you.
We are behind the curve of investment.
I hear
if you allow me to finish.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
We are behind the curve of investment when it comes to water supply. And we need to do for water supply what we have done for electricity supply nationwide.
No, but my question then becomes, because the moving or the water supply ecosystem is something that's done by the national government and not the county government. Okay? So therefore, you are relying on another government, rather on the national government, to be able to make sure that this water is available for you. What will happen in the event that, for one reason or the other, the national government is not able to complete the projects that they've said that they want to complete?
You know, our viewers out there have seen when the county government is aligned to the national government, politically and otherwise, things happen very fast. That is why on 9th of August, the ask to the people of Nairobi is let's make sure on the ballot, it is an Azimio president and an Azimio governor in Nairobi. We are not different governments. And even if, well, whatever case, then the county governments are interdependent with the national government. We are not independent. We work together. And you're very right. The new water sources is work that we shall do with the Ministry of Water to develop. But we are, and you can imagine how urgent that task is. Mm-hmm. We cannot talk about investment in our capital city, the front porch, the heartbeat of East and Central Africa. We have forgotten that it needs water. So what we are saying, for me and Professor Kaloki in our manifesto, we believe in 3 utilities in Nairobi: electricity, water, and data. So those will be the 3 utilities that we shall provide.
And yet electricity is not you who supplies it.
But the electricity we have more.
Water, your only role is to make sure that it's piped to the homes or to the various
Yes,
places.
And we also build the sources and we partner. Yeah,
but
correct.
Still just on that water, just so that we can move away from that question. You know, the indignity of Nairobians is shown by the bowsers that traverse the cities. That every time you see a tank having water in it, you just know that that's somebody who should be having water flowing from that tap, but they don't have that water.
Right now, we are on a water rationing program, which will continue until the new water sources are completed. New dams are built that are able to create the mismatch we talked about, where supply of water is 50% the demand of water in Nairobi. It's at half the demand that is half. That's why you see the bowsers coming through. And there's also been a heavy investment in boreholes. Like during the COVID period, I believe almost 144 boreholes were sunk in informal settlements right through Nairobi. If you look at some of the people who can afford it, everybody has been sinking boreholes. But you know, we are drilling the Nairobi aquifer and really affecting the water, the underground water system for Nairobi. Luckily, it is a city of cool waters. That's why it's called Nkare Nairobi. That's why the Maasai called it a place of cool waters. But the water problem, we will have to make do with boreholes in the short term, with specific bowser in the short term, but in the longer term, in 5 years, I can promise Nairobians that supply of water to Nairobi will exceed the demand that we are having.
Would you be willing, if you became governor and you realize that part of these water problems is people doing business, in the sense that people are creating artificial shortages, and therefore so that they can be able to supply water to homes, will you take a hard stand on that and make sure that does not happen?
Manuel, we have agreed. There is no artificial shortage of water. There is a real shortage of water. But my own study and my own understanding, and remember I was deputy governor for 6 months, I clearly, and one of the first jobs I did was actually to change the governance of Nairobi City Water and Sewerage Company. Yes, there is a lot of, there is leakage across the distribution pipe, but the bigger problem that must be addressed is a national issue, is supply of sufficient water to match the demand of not just Nairobi, but the Nairobi metropolitan area.
But let's move to the area of transportation. And I think your manifesto speaks about building a transport system that allows people to move easily within the city. How will this be achieved? Because you see, sometimes when we get, as citizens, when we get these manifestos, all these big ideas, but it's difficult to understand how that gets achieved.
Can I tell you, we have a president who's the 5th president of this country, called Raila Amolo Odinga. Baba Raila Amolo Odinga is an addict of infrastructure and an addict of peace and an addict of unity. That man is the man who drew and delivered as Minister of Roads the outer ring. There used to be the outer ring road which passes through Umoja, and Umoja used to be very far from CBD. Then he came with a plan and delivered the eastern bypass, the southern bypass, and now the bypass between Denderu back, that has just been done, back to Kikuyu area. What we are now saying is there is going to be the Azimio commuter transport rail ring that will connect Githurai to Kiambu into Limuru, and a railway line from Riruta Satellite going into Ongata Rongai, a railway line from Embakasi to Ruai, and will then create a commuter rail system, and then change our transport system from being homocentric. Homocentric means even when you come from up country, you are decanted in Tomboya Street, Tea Room, Nyamakima, and Grogon. And then after that, the way we were decanted back in 1960, when the city had 300,000 residents. Now we are 5 million. We are still decanting people in the middle of CBD. If you go to Tomboya Street and the south, the streets have been taken over by public transport. So what we are saying is there's a whole need to redesign, and this is not a Polycarp Igathe Kaloki idea. This is the Nairobi Integrated Urban Master Plan. What is our promise is to come and execute the plans that have been gathering dust on the shelves. Nairobi has fantastic professionals, and we are coming to take that plan and saying, just get it done. No, create railway city. It's nice to hear this. Let me talk about solutions. Don't take me to massaging problems. No, Nairobians don't want an accident. How the solutions are going to be funded. Nairobians don't want an accident and emergency officer as their governor. They want a solution. They want a doctor. Listen, the railway city, there's Green Park coming up, and there's an underpass being constructed under Uhuru Highway. Yes. Then we have the waterfront park, we have Landis. So there'll be the railway city that is going to be done. We will work with the railway pension scheme. There's 40 acres of land in Ngara, where we are going to do, we think can really domicile a lot of matatus coming from there. There are 8 corridors of transport. So
do we know how much all this will cost?
Nairobi is right now under collecting. So you've asked me about funding.
My question is, do we know how much that will cost?
What?
Building all this rail system and all this transport system, and who will meet the cost? Is it the county government or is it the national government?
This is the capital city. The investment in a capital city is both national government and the county government. And the cost estimates will come. What we are making is a commitment that we shall decongest and bring coherence to our mobility and transport. And there's a report that's been done by JICA. There was even an institution created called the Nairobi Metropolitan Transport Authority, NAMATA, which has been created. What you see when you come out of the airport to the right is something called Barabara Plaza. That was not an accident by the national government, where there's Kenha, Kura, Kera, all combined together under a traffic control system that is based out of Mombasa Road. What you're seeing with the expressway is not an accident. So I'm giving you comfort to tell you, we are not coming as disruptors and people to come and say nothing has been done in the past. We are coming to accelerate.
Let's think about a 28-year-old gentleman or lady right now, sitting, listening to you speak about all these plans, is in his first job. And he takes 1.5 hours every day on commute time in the morning, from him leaving his house to getting to his workstation. How much time do you think he will have to put up with his current 1.5 hour situation?
The time span for a governor is 5 years.
Yes.
My promises are 5 years. There's only one promise I made in 100 days to fix the organization of Nairobi City County. Make sure I have the right cabinet, the right chief officers, the right directors, a motivated team with a commercial bargaining agreement. The rest, we will do them in a coordinated way, because most of these plans, by the way, this manifesto has now to be converted into a county integrated development plan with now clear budgeting and clear planning. Then it becomes a full document. Then you go to public participation, neighborhood association, residents association, business association must input into it, and we shall interrogate it the way we interrogate it, very fairly and reasonably with you to realize it. So my promises are 5-year promises. Now, at the end of 5 years, look at me and ask me, Igathe, have we decongested Nairobi? Is your mobility and transport manifesto realized? Is your e-government manifesto realized? Is your decent jobs promise realized? Is your ease of doing business promise realized? Is your fighting hunger promise realized? Is your education school realized? Is your garbage, proper zoning, disaster management realized? Ask me that question. And you know, the good thing about being in politics is you're judged every 5 years. I'll be in 5 years, I'll be present again to report to my employers, the people of Nairobi who are begging and beseeching to give me a job. They will judge me in 5 years. But in 100 days...
Every time I can tell you this, every time we've listened to politicians say this, it's always the same speak that judge me in 5 years. And that 5 years comes, the one thing that they give you is one excuse after the other. I'm not saying that you'll do the same. I'm just telling you what the history has been. But let's come back to this matter about businesses.
That is true. When you look at history, that has been the case. But look at Igathe's record. And that's why I want to sort of give you comfort. What needs to be Nairobi is not in debate and how it needs to be done. If you speak to anybody across the street, in fact, the people sitting at home, they know exactly what needs to be done. They just want the governor to do his job.
I agree.
But then number two, the question is, who will do it? I think in this interview, we should spend a little bit more time talking about the competence, the character, the capability of the person. My friend, anyone knows, the driver, the soul of this country is what is on the ballot on 9th of August. Chapter 6, capable, competent, has a record of delivery. I come from the private sector where delivery is not if or but. And my friend, I've been on top of that delivery for over 30 years. I am poached and given a higher salary everywhere I go by multinationals in very competitive jobs. I'm a guy who gets it done.
Now that you bring up that question, and it's you brought it up, somebody else might also as well say, well, let's prosecute the chapter 6 as much as we can, but somebody else will also sit back and say, hey, but wait a minute, but you walked out on me.
There's something called principle, which you must come to terms with. Why do you think a politician, after they're voted for, takes a Bible or the Quran, 2 holy books, looks up at their God and says, my God, so help me God? Are you involved in that point? It is my conscience and my God. And I was clear. I failed to earn the trust. And because I failed to earn the trust, to fail betraying the people of Nairobi, of Article 1, I retreated and stepped down peacefully. I did not interfere with the governor. And in 2 years, what I walked out from came to life. What I am saying is, do not denigrate people who stand on principle. Even the Bible says, let your yes be your yes, your no be your no. And in matters of the conscience, the rule of the majority does not apply. And in my case, I was clear that this county will be disbanded unless something changes. Thank God, Uhuru Kenyatta found a formula, the government found a formula, the political parties found a formula. And I am not coming to walk away. And look at, do you know how many of the thousands of politicians we have earn a salary without even working a single day? Today, I'm pilloried today for having stood on principle, while we have people who even continue to earn your salary, but they live abroad. I'm a very competent guy. Biashara yangu ni kuuza skills zangu. And you can't blame me. When you go to the market and you find a better buyer for your tomatoes, you sell. So what's my problem? No. Let's stick with this question.
Yes.
I was employed by Coca-Cola. I got a higher salary from Africa Online. I was employed by breweries. I got a higher salary than I was earning at Africa Online. I was employed by Hako. I got a higher salary than I was earning. I was employed by Shell. I got a higher salary. My friend, you're blaming me for my good luck.
I cannot blame you.
And my good luck, is born.
God continue giving you good luck.
And my good luck is born of prayer, hard work, and discipline.
Let me ask you this question: will then being a governor pay you better than where you were before?
No.
Then why take it? Then why go after it?
Because it's not a salary I'm coming for. My friend, I have a good service. I'm a citizen of this country. I have been more than lucky in my life. I have been more than lucky. And my luck is born of cultivating my own luck through sincere effort, high intention, and intelligent execution, and being true to my force. The only that my competitors can raise today is that word of saying you resigned. You know, they've never, let me put it this way. There's a reason why in our constitution we decided after article that there's a whole chapter, and Supreme Court spoke to it recently. You must be of the right character, the right capability, the right suitability, the right integrity, the right competence. That's why you and I spend most of our hard-earned cash to take our children to school, to make sure that you're an upright citizen. But on the other hand, the thing we denigrate most in this country is people who stand on principle. The first person to stand on principle, I'm not the first person to resign from office.
No, you're not.
One, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, you should read that great man resignation letter.
I've read it more than once when he was resigning as a vice president.
Joseph Murumbi. You know, we must go back to people who stand on principle, and people who stand on principle should not apologize.
Talking about principles, can you put your hand to your heart and say that if you became the governor, if you, for example, found anybody in your administration, in your government, either the deputy governor or a CEC or whichever other person, that you will ask them to step aside, even if, as long as there's any bit or mention in their name in a corruption case?
Mano, that's a really good question. I can put my hand on my heart and say I will follow the laws of this country. I am subordinate to the Constitution. I'm subordinate to statute. I'm subordinate to the laws of Kenya. The laws of Kenya dictate how every public officer should behave. I'm going to be straight and narrow, just like I have behaved within the confines of all the jobs I've done in the past. Let me tell you, leadership is about only two things: performance and behavior. The people who behave very well perform very badly. Others perform very well and behave very badly. We want people who behave and perform. And that's the demand of Chapter 6. And as governor, I will execute my mandate within the law. It's not so much a Polycarp Igathe attitude or a Polycarp Igathe thing, but even when I'm executing my job of being the chief consequence manager of Nairobi City County, I will be the chief, and consequences are both positive and negative.
Yes,
so I can assure you, within the law, I'll be chief consequence officer, just like I will be chief service officer.
You know, I find politicians saying within the law quite a lot. And I find it's a way that they're trying to escape from some moral questions or moral answers. And the point you made earlier of you having left office because you felt morally it was not right. You felt like this, I'm being paid.
No, I failed, and I failed quickly.
Yes. When you
fail quickly. You don't fail slowly like some politicians.
I'm being paid and I'm not doing the work. The question then for me then, in the event, even before the law follows its complete due process, in the event there's an indication and an old lady comes to you and tells, you know what, deputy governor here or this minister of yours here demanded for something, and in fact, here is that thing, but I cannot be able to pursue this into its logical conclusion.
What I can assure you, Manwa, I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to set the example of what performance standards are and behavior standards are in the county.
No.
And by setting that example, it's also a way of saying, I'll set example by using the law. Because also I should not be seen as somebody who's coming to office vindictive, especially when you're coming to Nairobi City County. So I want to sort of curate the point you are making that we are hiding behind the law. It's also to reassure people that it's not my emotion I'm bringing. There's a personnel manual in Nairobi City County. There's policy guidelines, administrative guidelines. Within those guidelines, I will effect consequence management.
Let's not talk about the issue of the revenues that you said that I'm running away from. The report showed that Nairobi got almost 29 billion shillings in the last financial year against a target of about 38 or 36, actually 36, not 38, but 36 billion. Having looked at what's in Nairobi, how much can you reassure residents of Nairobi that you can be able to collect every month or every year? Let me actually put every year.
My objective and what I want to be held to account is that I really would like to become the governor who collects 100 million shillings a day.
100 million shillings a day.
That is 500 million shillings a week. That is 2 billion a month. Times 12, that is 24 billion of my own revenue.
Your own revenue. 24.
Today I think the performance might be around 9-10 billion. 9-10 billion.
So I want
9.1 billion. I want to double that. I think I can do it without too much effort, through digitization and digitalization, through use of technology, through incentives, the right incentives to the staff, and that will release the pressure on national government because we are collecting a lot more. Because Nairobi's biggest revenue collectors is land rates, parking, market cess. There are a couple of revenue lines with 6 revenue lines. And there's even a study done by the Commission for Revenue Allocation that says with 6 revenue lines, Nairobi can collect on its own, without help from the national government, 80 billion a year.
Okay.
I'm promising. I'm not even going to the 80 billion. I'm just
about 24 billion.
Because I'm very well trained to know under promise, over deliver.
So 24 billion. Now tell me something. We are doing 10 billion or 9 billion as per the last records. You are saying 24. So there's a difference about 14 billion. Which space, do you know which specific space or places this extra 14 billion, because that's more than double, will come from?
I think there's revenue space in building permits. There's revenue space in outdoor advertising. There's revenue space in parking. There's revenue space in land rates, especially land rates. There's revenue space. There's also revenue space in utilities such as water. If we can do better work with it. But I think around those places there's space. And Nairobi County has a very solid management team. To be honest, although we call them Kanjo, I have worked there and I know there's serious talent there. What they require is the oxygen of leadership, which is what I bring.
What you're saying, without necessarily adding anything to Nairobi County, just by better management, you'll be able to double the revenue that Nairobi is collecting now.
You know, Nairobi for the longest used to use a third party to collect their money. A third party company used to collect their money and then declare it to them. They didn't even know where it was going. The whole order to cash cycle of Nairobi is very poorly managed. Like when I say order to cash, I say the service to cash. From the time a citizen orders a service like garbage collection or parking or single business permit or licensing, to the time that cash is collected, that cycle has a lot of, it looks like the cheese that comes from Switzerland, Swiss cheese. You know, it has a lot of holes. There's a lot of leakage there. And the procure to pay cycle also has a lot of waste and holes. So those two holes, the procure to pay cycle and the service order to cash cycle, I'm going to concentrate on that. And then the human resource practices, the financial management practices. And that's why Nairobi County needs to be professionally run, not politically run. You need a politician who is a professional.
Are you a politician who's a professional? Do you consider yourself a politician?
I consider myself a professional first, and I'm also in politics now. Okay. So indeed, I'm a politician because I'm canvassing. Indeed, I'm a politician, but I will run the county professionally. That is the difference between me and what else is on offer. My competitors will run this county politically, but I will run this county professionally. And Nairobians are fed up of Vitimbi and Vipinre and Sinemare, as we say in Nairobi.
The next question then,
politics is, you dance, you need to. The governor of Nairobi must be in the office before 6 and must leave after 8. He must be first in, last out to get the job done. Pay attention, be present where work takes place, motivate, coach, control, be available to the citizens for consultations, be available to the Residents Association for consultation. This is not a place where, it's not like Parliament, where you go at 11, then take 2 hours break, and then come back at 3, and then go home.
But you know, as you say that, you must also remember and be alive to the fact that once you become a governor, you've got MCAs who then are entrusted with policy discussion, passing the law, discussing the budget, and all those things.
Oh yes.
How then do you balance? Assuming
thank you for bringing the point around MCAs. Member county MCAs their work is oversight. You know, an egg has 3 parts. The yolk, which is where the heart of the DNA is. Yeah. Then the yolk is protected by an egg white. So the yolk is the executive. The egg white is really the MCAs, and the shell is the residents of Nairobi. Business association, residents associations, neighborhood association. I will bring to life the Urban and Cities Act, the Neighborhoods Act. We will bring, for instance, what does that mean, Manuel? Well, say you live in a neighborhood like Buruburu, and I get an invoice saying somebody has tarmacked a road in Buruburu and has done pavements and covered storm drains. I will expect the Buruburu Residents Association to sign that invoice first.
Before you pay? Before
I pay. I think residents must start to participate so that if they say that pothole is repaired, today the biggest complaint is, munalipa watu na hakuna kazi wamefanya. The frustration is boiling over, and they are demanding participation in government. This is what we mean. And that's why it's Nairobi Tunavyoitaka. My work is to deliver what they want. That promise is a government of the people, for the people, by the people.
A lot of people will say that the matching of governor and running mates, not just in Nairobi County, but across the country. But in our case, we'll just speak about your candidature and your running mate. Are these marriages of convenience? Is this somebody you know? Did you know him well enough before you appointed him to be before you selected him to be your running mate? And what else does it bring to you?
I met Professor Kaloki when he was actually a scholar in Texas, Dallas, and he was involved in an exchange program of bringing American companies.
And when was this?
Back in the year 2004. I was deputy managing director at Hako Industries.
Yes.
And we used to do a hair product called Motions and TCB, which is manufactured in Dallas. And he came with a delegation from America as a Kenyan and visited our factory. Eventually, after that, he came back home and ran for Kibwezi parliamentary seat of in Makueni County. And so we've been friends, and I've watched how he has performed as a non-executive chairman or chairman of the Kenya Medical Training College, which is perhaps the most successful technical vocational educational training institute. He's a professor of business and executive management, and he will have a cabinet role, and he'll be, so we know one another in that context. And he's been in parliament, he's a politician, and he's also a business executive. And we are both professionals.
Was this a marriage of convenience of numbers that Professor Kaloki comes from a certain area and I come from a certain area, so that if I add these two together, then I've got huge numbers that can be able to see me over there?
Of course, there's solid political equation. Politics is done in mother tongue, not in English and Swahili. All right? The 4 biggest, most popular mother tongues in Nairobi is Kikuyu, Kamba, Luo, and Luya. Actually, it's Kikuyu, Luya. You know, those are the 4. But Nairobi is a city of everybody. So you also have to look at the political, definitely at the political equation. And that's why we Azimio la Umoja, it's about the whole country. Unity is what we are looking for. We don't want to make certain big political positions to be tag teams between 2 mother tongues, you know, like they are playing ping pong amongst one another. And that's the genius of Baba Raila Amolo Odinga. And the genius of the platform he has given us in Azimio la Umoja, in One Kenya Alliance.
Mr. Igathe, Nairobi Tunavyoitaka.
Nai Tunavyoitaka.
Nai Tunavyoitaka. Thank you so much for coming to face the nation.
And Manuel, thank you very much.
And we hope to have you here. Assume you become a governor, we hope to have you back on the show.
When I'm governor in 10 days with a 65% mandate, stonking mandate. We're not just winning. It's a stonking mandate, my brother.
Asante sana.
God bless you.
Same to you.
And God bless Kenya.
Asante. Thank you.
And thanks for holding us to account.
No problem. Thank you.
Mungu akubariki.